It is 7 minutes after 6 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We continue with episode 885 of our gathering together today on Super Talk. I thank you for that. Jackson, do you know how many of these you've been a part of yet? Have you been counting?
So I started June 15th was my first day because your shoulder was the 22nd, correct?
23rd.
Okay, so it would have been the 16th would have been my first day with you.
Okay.
Because nobody told me you were having shoulder surgery when I agreed to come do the show with you.
And now my shoulder's doing a lot better.
Yeah. So let's do this live and in person. Today is the 16th.
Yeah.
So June to July, July to August, August to September.
I don't know that I meant for you to do all this. I was just curious because we were rating how the show was going.
About 3 months.
You said you were evaluating the show. You said I think we've had a really good show today. You said in my head, and I said, well, I think I have, and I think Ken has. I don't know about you.
Well, I just won Nincompoop. So
did you?
Did you guys have a good show? Really?
Did you win Nincompoops?
I saw a lot of votes for me. I didn't really calculate them. That's your job.
Jackson, I feel like you start Nincompoops with a little bit of a lead every single day. I don't know why.
Are you
old birds of a feather
selling some deep state conspiracies about Nincompoops?
No, I'll sell deep state conspiracies, but not so much about Nincompoop. What can you do the segment without swigging on whatever liquid you're? Are you that thirsty?
No, I had a thing in my throat. I was afraid I was going to cough straight into the microphone. I had to fix it.
I feel like there's plenty of times where you can be swigging on your big ass jug of water. There.
I don't have a cough button back here.
Don't you?
No, I don't have a cough button.
Do you have an off button?
I do.
Okay, let's see how that works. 615-737. I don't know why I'm being. Why am I being mean to you today?
I don't know. Maybe you just woke up angry.
I don't know if I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I got abused by Abigail the abuser with my PT, and I don't know. I'm going
to blame Abigail whenever you come in here grumpy.
You should. She's an abuser. She's roughed me up, but it's getting better.
Go play with Munford.
Thank you, Munson. Good gracious. Robert Redford. Larry Munn's son.
Robert Redmond and Munford and Sons.
Yeah, and Paul Newman
is the mayonnaise guy.
That's right.
He played quarterback for the Titans.
That's what they tell me. That's what they tell me. Okay, so without further ado, let's from this nincompoop to another nincompoop. Adam Schiff, the pencil neck geek himself, had a combative exchange with FBI Director Kash Patel. Kash Patel was on the Hill, and apparently leftist Democrats were very, very upset why some people within the FBI were fired, and they wanted to accuse Kash Patel of firing them for political reasons. Here's Adam Schiff with the exchange between himself and Kash Patel on Capitol Hill earlier today.
Do you think they're stupid?
No. I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates. What I am doing is protecting this country, providing historic reform, and combating the weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you. And we have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
Whoa!
Well, you can take an internet troll.
Take it to the bank that the FBI is protecting this country and the state and citizens of the California. We are bringing historic reform. Point of order. But all you care about is a child sex predator that was prosecuted by a prior administration, and the Obama Justice Department and the Biden Justice Department did squat. And what did President Trump do? Bring new charges courageously. And what have we done?
Chairman,
you said I'm the most transparent FBI director in history. 33,000 pages of information to you. I challenge you to say anything credibly to the truth. Go ahead and run to the cameras where you want to go now.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Spicy.
Into my veins. Absolutely love that spicy. That is Kash Patel giving back what Adam Schiff deserves, and he's not wrong, friends. He's not wrong at all. So Kash Patel was referring to the fact that it was the Trump administration in his first term that brought these charges against Jeffrey Epstein to begin with. It was the Trump administration that saw an advancement of that case. It was the Trump administration that has brought this back up. Now, I don't pretend that they've handled the Epstein files properly, and I hope that we get to the bottom of who's involved, what names need to be outed, what names aren't there, what names are there, etc. But any suggestion by Adam Schiff that there's hiding going on, and all Adam Schiff wanted to talk to Kash Patel about, he didn't want to talk to them about other advances within the FBI. He wanted to talk to him about firing certain people within the FBI and the Epstein files. And Kash Patel's right to call him out on Russiagate. He's right to call him out on Jan 6, and he's right to call him out on how he has created this air of a narrative rather than a desire for the truth. And I applaud him calling out Adam Schiff in this regard. Kash Patel, while he was on Capitol Hill, other decision-making was happening at a New York State judge level, as the state judge in New York dropped 2 terrorism charges against Luigi Mangione while maintaining a second-degree murder charge against the suspect in the killing of CEO Brian Thompson, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The charges dropped, murder in the furtherance of an act of terrorism and murder in the second degree as a crime of terrorism, were deemed, quote, legally insufficient by a New York judge, Gregory Caro. The judge noted that all other counts presented by the prosecution, which include second-degree murder and several weapons charges, are legally sufficient. Mangione's attorneys were pushing for the New York State charges to be dropped against the 27-year-old, arguing the charges against him at the state and federal levels constitute double jeopardy. Caro determined it's too early to decide on the double jeopardy claim. Federal charges carry the possible weight of the death penalty. Prosecutors for the terrorism charges prosecutors pushed for terrorism charges on the ground that Mangione, quote, violently broadcast a social and political message to the public at large. They also pointed out the murder was committed in Midtown Manhattan, which they claim widely recognized as the media capital of the world. I think everyone's definition of terrorism and what constitutes terrorism, I think reasonable people can have mildly different approaches to what is and is not terrorism. I think in a way, I mean, for goodness sake, if we wanted to suggest that this SOB assassin in Utah was acting to terrorize the political right, we could probably get a lot of people behind the idea, and I might be behind the idea of charging that person with terrorism. I mean, what else would you call it? But I could understand why a judge, and I don't know this judge, and I don't know the background of the charge. In other words, I've not read what the nature of the charge of terrorism would be. I would say that obviously this person is guilty of murder, and obviously there are way too many people celebrating the murder of a man who had a wife and a family because you didn't like what he did for a living and you don't like the manner in which health care is executed in the United States of America, whatever. But I can also understand why some would suggest that that is not on its face terrorism. And so I can understand why some of those charges would be dropped. I don't think this is moving toward dropping charges of murder against Luigi Mangione. Several of you reached out to me earlier today. I was like, this is bad, Murphy. It's there's a lot of people that are celebrating this guy. There's a lot of people that want to see all these charges dropped. Once again, the idea of a terroristic act versus something that is a clear act of murder, a simple act of murder, if you will. I mean, I understand that this was targeted, it was precise, and it was designed to make a political statement, but I don't know that that in and of itself would constitute what I would call terrorism. And so that's what I'll say about that for now. In the meantime, just as you think CNN has sunk low as they can go, they sink a little bit lower, because CNN wants to convince you that all of the political violence is coming from the right. I read they're harping on, and I've seen a number of leftists in the state of Tennessee, like Heidi Campbell and Gloria Johnson. These are people that aren't serious-minded. They don't really do their homework. Senator Heidi Campbell, you're not a serious-minded person. Representative Gloria Johnson, you're not a serious-minded person. You're welcome on the show. Anytime you want to be on the show, I invite all comers on this radio show, but I don't suffer fools gladly. At the same time, you're citing a report by the Anti-Defamation League that suggests that over the last 4 or 5 years that political violence has been much more represented on the right than on the political left. And some of the examples that are being used by the Anti-Defamation League, I was looking over this study last night. My eyes were glazing over and rolling in the back of my head as I was reading the study. But I was looking over the study last night. And these are not political, these are not the same type of examples as we saw last week in Utah. As a matter of fact, quite the contrary. They grasp at straws to try to find some level of quote-unquote right-wing political affiliation when violence is engaged in, and they ascribe that to the individuals engaging in the violence. But this is not the typical type of political violence that you would think of when you think of right-wing ideology or left-wing ideology. Matter of fact, a lot of these cases from 2024 cited by the Anti-Defamation League that people like Gloria Johnson and people like Heidi Campbell are using to suggest that people on the political right are much more violent than people on the political left. These are cases that had nothing to do with politics whatsoever. They just took a case and they recognized that this particular person was a, quote, right-winger. In one case, for example, the situation, the murder it was a 2024 murder, had nothing to do with politics whatsoever. It was a domestic squabble. It was a domestic abuse case. But because the individual that was responsible for the murder had some sort of insignia on their body, a tattoo on their body, I think it was an SS tattoo, which is obviously awful, don't get me wrong. But that SS tattoo, because that was there, they said, oh, this was a right-wing murder. Well, that's not what we think of when we think of a political death or a political murder or a murder associated with the political leanings of one person or another person. This was a domestic abuse case committed by someone that had a screw loose and had a tattoo, had a dumbass tattoo. That's not the same thing. What do you see with your own eyes? What do you feel in your own bones when it comes to who the more politically violent side in all of this truly is? Is it the right or the left? I don't want violence of any sort. I believe in words can have a far more reaching effect than any sort of violent act. And I think we're going to find that from last week. You know what I'm saying? Because Charlie Kirk, God bless him and God rest his soul, Charlie Kirk is far better known today than he was last week, and we wouldn't wish death on anyone. We certainly wouldn't want death on him. But if the purpose was to silence him, you have achieved the opposite result, because not of the violent act that you committed, but because of the words left behind by the 31-year-old Charlie Kirk. But, the left is scrambling. First, they tried to tell us that this guy was a right-winger because his family were politically on the right. And his father voted for Donald Trump. Well, that makes it worse. You understand, if he's able to be radicalized coming from a relatively stable home, if he's able to be radicalized, well, that tells me that we have far more to do on our social media platforms to prevent this sort of thing than even I thought a week ago. That said, listen to how CNN reacts and watch how CNN reacts. I'll tell you what, actually, I'll take a short time out. I'll try to stay on time for you, Jackson. I'll try to keep my record unblemished for today.
Huh?
Yeah, that's right. 21 after the hour on Super Talk 99.7. When we return, Scott Jennings, one of the bright stars at CNN, one of the few bright stars at CNN, has a few things to say. We'll tell you about it next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know, I'm dealing with this in real time. I need a snap poll from you guys. So we're just going over some of the text exchange between the alleged assassin in the Charlie Kirk killing and his roommate/boyfriend. And many of you on social media platforms are crying foul. And I understand that they look weird. They look almost not staged, set up. And I'm curious, for those of you that are suggesting that these seem odd, and I admit that I'm thinking along these lines too, but I'm trying to noodle this out in real time as we sit here together and as we talk about all of these things. And so my question then would be, are those doubting the text exchanges and their authenticity suggesting corruption in the Trump FBI? Or that the texts were a setup to absolve the roommate lover from responsibility? Because I can see the latter, I cannot see the former. Y'all follow? Based on the exchanges, I can see where these might have been a setup to try to absolve anyone else of responsibility. But I do not believe that the Trump FBI has a level of corruption that would suggest that these are staged texts. Because if you believe that, then you don't believe that this guy's the killer, right? And that's just a space I can't get into. My eyes are clearly wide open to any and all possibilities, but I'm not willing to go there, anywhere close to there as of yet. I see too much evidence on the ground. I see too much evidence in real time that this is the person that shot and killed Charlie Kirk. By the way, I've not gotten into the back and forth between Candace Owens and some others within the Turning Point orbit. That is, a few of you have asked me about this on social media. A few of you have asked me about it on our text message. Here's what I'll say. I believe that I'm sad to tell you that I think Candace Owens has lost her mind. And I think she is trying to figure out a way to blame the Jews for Charlie Kirk's death. And her way of doing that is by suggesting that there was some fight between Charlie and supporters of Israel in the Hamptons. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I wouldn't expend too much energy on it. But if you do know what I'm talking about, I've been asked about it and I want to answer to that. And I do not believe that Candace Owens has any particular information that is credible whatsoever. Charlie was a supporter of Israel. He had questions like the rest of us. I mean, I had questions about how Israel was engaging in its business. I was concerned. I am concerned about the way that they're engaging in their business. That doesn't mean that I don't support them in their effort to remain the best chance that there is for democracy within the Middle East right now. And they have a right to exist, and I still believe that, and I hope you do too. That doesn't mean that I agree with them at every turn, but that I don't think they're evil either. Like, unfortunately, so many seem to in the United States. Anti-Semitism has become a fad of portions of the younger generation. And many of those people sadly listen to people like Candace Owens, who is just she's an anti-Semite. I'm not saying that except that I believe it. I'm not trying to tell you how to believe it. I'm just telling you what I believe. That's what I do on this radio show. It's 30 after the hour on Super Talk. I am remiss in my duties talking to you on the Super Text line. I apologize for that. For those Super Texters out there, I thank you, each and every one of you, for joining us and for making yourself available on the Super Text line and offering your opinion. 615-737-9986. I appreciate that. To each of you, the Trump administration, under the tutelage of Attorney General Pam Bondi, is suggesting a crackdown on quote-unquote hate speech, something that I hate. I do not believe that it is the government's job to engage in this sort of behavior. yes, there is a fundamental difference between hate speech and speech that inspires violence or violent behavior or endangers the lives of other people. And that's how that should be the work of the free market. I'll give you an example. And I was just looking it up. This, did you hear the story about the New Jersey surgeon who cheered Charlie Kirk's murder in the operating theater? And a nurse called him out on it, and the nurse was initially suspended. And we're like, wait a minute, wrong person suspended here. So the surgeon was seemingly getting a pass while the nurse was suspended. And no, we can't have that. So the free market eventually worked that out. And now the surgeon, the individual cheering the death of Charlie Kirk, has been fired, and the nurse has been reinstated. You see how the free market works these things out on their own without government getting involved, Pam Bondi? Another example, Pam Bondi mentioned Office Depot and said, oh, it's wrong when Office Depot won't print certain things that they should print. Office Depot fired a store employee at its a Michigan branch, Portage, Michigan, who refused to print posters for Charlie Kirk for a vigil. Apparently, this employee told a customer, we don't print propaganda, and he's a political figure. The video went viral. It sparked outrage, and Attorney General Pam Bondi then declared that businesses could be, quote, prosecuted for refusing such services. Well, if it is a business's policy to not print political-minded speech or political print, then that's fine. You can't cherry pick customer to customer the manner in which you do it. But the market is going to determine which businesses survive with those types of ridiculous parameters and which do not. On Fox News, Bondi said businesses cannot discriminate. If you want to go in and print posters with Charlie's pictures on them for a vigil, you have to let them do that. Well, I believe in an America where a business can refuse service unless it is determined that the refusal of service is for a protected class, and unless and until you can demonstrate that providing that service would be a violation of my basic rights. See the cake baker who did not wish to participate in a religious ceremony like a marriage that they did not believe in, that violated their religious beliefs or religious tenets. Well, you most certainly can say no to that sort of thing, and should, if you believe it's a basic violation of your faith or your First Amendment rights or your constitutional rights whatsoever. But the market will figure it out, and the market has figured it out. This Home Depot employee or Office Depot, employee has been fired. And then there's this. I promised this video on CNN. So, such a bright star on CNN is Scott Jennings, and he pointed out an inconvenient truth because some in the mainstream media have been pointing out that, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, the attempted murder of Josh Shapiro has not been getting the attention that it deserves. Well, when Scott Jennings started giving it the attention it deserves, things got a little weird.
He's got a point.
Well, I think his point would be strengthened if he were honest today about who burned his house down. You know, it was a Free Palestine leftist who came and burned down the governor's mansion. He left that out. He left that out of his tweet today, and he's talking about cherry-picking political violence, and we're talking about where there might be political violence. The violence against the governor of Pennsylvania and his family came from the left. And so I think there's a rush by Democrats who want to be president in 2028 to try to turn. Somehow, Donald Trump's friend gets shot, and now everybody wants to blame Donald Trump for it. I guess that's what you have to do to get elected president. as a Democrat.
We are not doing that sitting here, okay? And Kate,
I'm
please
sorry.
go ahead.
Is that not what's happening?
The governor's The governor's point is that it doesn't matter where the violence came from.
I think it might.
Should be condemned.
Shouldn't it matter
So
the motivations of the people?
It should be condemned regardless. That's the entire point of his speech.
Don't
So
you
to
care
sit
about
here-
the motivation?
To sit here and suggest that somehow him not mentioning it was some sort of sleight of hand,
Of course it
to try
is.
to make it seem like it was.
I don't
someone
think
else's
his
fault.
political party
You
would
missed
accept
the
it.
entire point of what he was saying, and it's a message that's badly needed in this country at this moment.
Look, I think that if we cannot be honest, if I were him and somebody tried to burn my house down, I think I'd be honest about who did it and why they did it. And it would matter for people to know that, would it not?
Scott, is this not a let's rise above because anyone that is committing an act of political...
I love how these political leftists, let me just interject here for just a moment. I love how these political leftists want to rise above the fray and talk above the muck and the mire when it is inconvenient for them to get down into the muck and the mire. I assure you that had this been a right-winger that declared he wanted to kill Josh Shapiro because he hated Palestine or he hated the Muslims or he hated the Jewish people because he was a neo-Nazi, I can assure you they would want to talk about the motivations behind this person. But this person was a free Palestine individual that didn't feel like Josh Shapiro was doing enough to support the Palestinian people, and suddenly they don't want to talk about it.
violence who is trying to kill someone else for what they believe in. It's like it is inherently wrong and awful.
Why are your two impulses mutually exclusive? Why can't we all say all political violence is bad, which I wholeheartedly believe, and also be honest when people have clear intentions? I think there's a difference between people that have clear intentions and, clearly deranged people. But in the case of Shapiro, and I think in the case of Charlie Kirk, we know the intentions, the political intentions of the people at play. And when we sort of skirt around it and we're not honest about it, we let it off the hook. And I don't think we should let people with clear political intentions to commit violence off the hook. And so I like what he said about condemning violence. I just would like it a little more if we could just be a little bit honest about what happened at his house.
You would just like it.
Amen. I love it. I believe it. And he's 100% correct. Jeff is next in Indiana with a thought on all of this. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Doing real good. Matt, the thing about it is, we've been thinking about the Democrats as just being, somebody who's thinking wrong, basically, as opposed to what we think. But I believe that this is a general statement, which means it's generally, more true than not, and not exactly, covers every instance. But I believe there's a significant amount of Democrats that are actually pure evil. You got these people going around and talking about Charlie Kirk and everything, and it's a vile person who can think these things, and then people that go out and burn cities down basically, and have no empathy for their fellow man to do the kind of things that they do. The Nazis were an evil group, but not every Nazi was evil. Take, for instance, Schindler. He was a Nazi party, but he was a good man. So I think it's the same thing that applies to Democrats. Not all Democrats are evil, but I believe there's a significant amount of them that are basically evil, and they're not just wrong in their politics. They're just evil people.
What do you do with evil people, Jeff?
You try to straighten them out, and you fight against them best you can.
Well, you present sanity, you present good, you present love, you present rationale that is logically inassailable. What we don't do is eliminate them from society in any form or fashion based on their nature. You do so based on their actions.
Yes.
Right? What I want to shy away from is, I want to change hearts and minds. I think Charlie did too. That's why he went on these college campuses. That's why he faced these folks. So I want to change hearts and mind through logical thought, through rational thought, through, plowing through the emotional, the emotions of the moment and the argument and getting to the root of whatever they might be arguing or whatever we might see as manifesting itself as evil. Point being, What I don't want to do is declare people's thoughts to be wrong think and then decide that we're going to try to purge those from society. I think that's a dangerous game.
Yeah, I mean, we have to do all the things you say, but there's a certain amount of those people that can never be changed and won't be changed. It's kind of like Hamas and the Palestinians. Not every Palestinian is Hamas, but the Palestinian people are the ones who voted those people in. And a significant amount of them, have that same thought. So, I mean, it's, these groups, while a certain amount of them are basically, I think, pure evil, and a certain amount of them are just kind of have to going along with the flow with the others and don't really believe all the things they believe, but they just go along to be going along, I think. That's because it's their group. And like you say, we need to embrace these people.
Well, there's a lot. I'll tell you where I think a lot of this is born from. There's a lot of people that are running around, and many of them are leftists. I won't even call them Democrats because I don't work through political party lenses like that. But I'll say leftists who do not value the sanctity of life because they do not value their own lives. They're essentially existential nihilists. And if they do not believe in a higher power, if there's no sense of spirituality about them, then they have no value of life in and of itself. So it makes it very, very easy for those people to appear as evil to us, Jeff, and maybe we could even call it evil when they just dismiss the loss of life as a laugh or a lark. And it very much comes off as an evil perspective.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the call, brother, and thank you for the perspective.
Have a good one, Matt.
All right, man. You too. Serious question. Can we question the Israeli government and what I feel is a travesty to mankind in Gaza, but still support the Jewish people and their right to live? Of course you can, by the way, is the answer. I feel like we can't question Bibi without being called anti-Semite. You certainly can on my show. That's not what Candace Owens does, though. Candace Owens makes up narratives to blame the Israelis for just about everything that goes on in the world. And she's trying to make up, in my opinion, she's trying to make up a narrative to blame the Jewish people on the death of her friend, Charlie Kirk, without evidence, with no evidence whatsoever. She is, just mark my words, okay? She has not said it yet, but she is leading us down a narrative where at some point in the next several weeks, she is going to try to put together a story where she points her finger at the Jewish people or at the state of Israel. It's just my thought on it. Anyway, 4859 continues. I just want the killing on both sides to stop. No child should see war, Jewish or Palestinian. Well, here's where I go back to. There was one principal party in this conflict that wanted to continue the ceasefire as it existed on October 6th, 2023. And there was one group of people that engaged in a hellstorm that led to the death of, however many people. And yes, that has ultimately led to war. And yes, it is awful what's going on over there. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I wish that Hamas would throw their hands in the air and admit defeat and give themselves up to the Israeli government and the Israeli military, and the Palestinian people that do want to live in peace would have an ability to do so in the area that was designated as the Palestinian state, which was the Gaza Strip. But sadly, that's also an area where the leadership of the Gaza Strip, Hamas, holds hostages. Still, to this moment, dead and alive. $43.17, dude, there's 0% chance they're going to make hate speech illegal. It's not going to happen. And this same person also believes that the killing of the United Healthcare CEO was 100% terrorism. They wanted to scare CEOs 100%. Well, I mean, I understand how you would. I mean, reasonable people can agree to disagree. I'm not saying that I have a definitive position on it. I understand why a judge might believe that it was a stretch to charge the individual with terrorism as opposed to with murder, because terrorism is defined. I mean, the definition of terrorism is not a singular act of murder in terms of what your intent from a political perspective is designed to do. 615-737-9986. Wrapping it up. It's 53 after the hour on Super Talk.